welcome to Sundays at 7. I know many of you were here last night for the John Archer concert, and tonight in some ways is part 2. Sundays at 7 is the opportunity to see a little more of John and what he does, and then in the second part there will be a shorter than normal interview, but I hope an interesting one that you'll enjoy. Just to remind you that at Sundays at 7, at the end of the evening, we're serving tea and coffee, not in here now, but where you had the glass of wine beforehand, that's laid out for tea and coffee afterwards. If there's anything you've heard tonight that you feel inspires you, makes you think that you want to know a little bit more, there are people around who've got badges that say Sundays at 7. They would be happy to speak to you, to talk to you about any issues you may have. It might be something that John's raised tonight. It might be something that you've come here with tonight. It might be an issue. It's interesting, isn't it? I notice people with these badges here tonight, and I think they're called lanyards. And a few weeks ago, somebody said to me, when you move into that new building, we'll all have to wear lanyards. And I didn't know what a lanyard was. So a couple of days later, I was speaking to my co-church warden, Barbara, and I said, Barbara, when we move into that building, we're all going to have to wear, and I couldn't remember the name. So I said, we're all going to wear leotards. She said, and where are we going to wear these leotards? I said, well, round your neck. She said, do you mean lanyards? I said, that's what I said. He was here last night. We really enjoyed what he had to say, particularly the second half when he gave his own personal testimony. You'll enjoy what he has to say again tonight, and I hope you'll enjoy the interview afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome, John Archer.
Oh, some of you kept clapping. Yes, some of you were there last night. Wonderful. Good evening. How are you? You all good? Let me find out how many people were here last night. Jolly good. How many people weren't here last night? All right, people near the front, obviously. Jolly good. Well, yeah, I'm going to have a good time. Before I get interviewed, they asked me if I'd do a few tricks for you. And also, I brought my ukulele. They didn't ask for that, but I brought it anyway. I thought I'd start with a little ukulele song. So I thought I'd do a little blues song. There's not enough people play blues on the ukulele these days, so I'd like to sing a little blues song. I wrote this myself. It's called Lazy Man Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Lazy Man Blues. Here we go. Then I went back to bed. That's it. Thank you very much. Yes, come on in. Don't worry about it. Just dive in there. Nobody will notice. You weren't even spotted. Well done. No, it's all right. So I thought I'd tell you how I got into this because I do a bit of that mind reading stuff. You know, not real, but you know, I make it look real. And I've always wanted to genuinely read somebody's mind. I've always thought it would be good if you could tell what somebody was thinking, you know. And I used to try and do it when I was a little kid. I used to try and read people's minds, you know, and I used to try and move. I don't know if you ever did this when you were a kid. You thought, is it possible? And you'd stare at something and see if you could move. And of course, it never happened. And then I tried to guess, you know, what somebody's first words were going to be when they were walking towards me. And I got really good at that. It was usually hello. Eventually, I realised I couldn't do it, and I sort of gave up. Until a few years ago, I was lying in bed reading a magazine, and it was one of those magazines with lots of adverts. on the back page. And the very last advert, right at the bottom of the page, it said, "Would you like to read people's minds?" And I thought, how did they know? They must be good. So I rang them up. I spoke to a lady on the phone. She was in America. I said, "Can you teach me how to read people's minds?" She said, "Yes, of course we can. But you're going to have to come to America. You're going to have to study at the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York." So I left my family, I left my job, and I went to New York. I studied for 3 years. I studied under a man called Professor Hoffman. It was a very difficult job. He was a heavy man. You're going to have to speed up. You know that, don't you? All I had to do to prove that I'd got the powers of ESP was to correctly name a playing card that somebody was thinking of 3 times in a row. If I could name the card that they were thinking of 3 times in a row, I would win the commemorative marker pen from the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York. You don't care, do you? Now, for 3 years I tried, but for 3 years I failed. But I failed in a very unusual way. You see, somebody would be thinking of the 2 of diamonds, and I would say the ace of diamonds. Somebody else would be thinking the 4 of clubs, and I would say the 5 of clubs. I was always off by exactly 1 card. Never any more, never any less. Because if it was less, I wouldn't have been off. Now, after 3 years of trying and 3 years of failing, it was time for me to fly home. I was due to fly home at midnight, but it was still 7 o'clock in the evening. I hadn't yet left for the airport. There was just me and Professor Hoffman left at the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York. It was a big building. We were up on the 9th floor. There was just one light shining in the darkness. There was a faint drift of snow outside and the distant sound of Christmas carols. Very distant. It was April. And I remember as I picked up my bags to walk towards the door, Professor Hoffman stepped in front of me, and then he held out his hand to shake mine. And as he did, he said these simple words. "One more time, John. One more time." A little tear came to my eye. He was stood on my foot. I said, "All right." I said, "I'll try it one more time." And Professor Hoffman got animated, excited like I'd never seen him before. Started rushing around the building trying to find people to help. But there was nobody left apart from the cleaner, Dustin. Not sure what his name was. But anyway, we brought him into the room and we sat him in a chair. I remember he leaned back in the chair and he fell on the floor. It was a stool. But we picked him up again. And we explained what was going to happen. "Just think of a card and John will try and tell you what it is." And the man closed his eyes and thought of a playing card. I said the 6 of spades. He was thinking of the 6 of spades. I'd got it right for the first time in 3 years. If I could do it 2 more times, I would win the commemorative marker pen from the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York. Still doesn't sound enough. Professor Hoffman needed 2 more people, so this time he went outside. He went downstairs, out onto the streets. He found a little old lady doing the last little bit of Christmas shopping. She was late. She sort of had a big fur shawl around her neck. She was slightly hunched up. She was clutching 2 plastic bags that were digging into her fists. And he brought her up to the 9th floor. He used the lift. He's not a cruel man. And he sat her in a chair and he gave her some hot coffee. And I remember she held it like this in both hands because he had no cups. "Just think of a card," he said, "and John will try and tell you what it is." The little old lady closed her eyes and a gentle smile came across her soft, thin lips as she thought of a playing card. I said, "The Queen of Diamonds." She was thinking of the Queen of Diamonds. I'd got it right for the first time, again, in a row, twice. If I could do it 1 more time, I would win the commemorative marker pen from the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York. Still not enough. Professor Hoffman needed 1 more person. Again, he went out on the streets. This time he found a retired basketball player. He was a tall Jamaican gentleman, about 6'8", with a tight crop of grey curly hair. And he brought him into the room. He banged his head on the top of the door. We sat him down. We mopped up the blood. And then we explained what was going to happen. "Just think of a card and John will tell you what it is." He didn't close his eyes. He just looked at me. And we stared at each other for what seemed like hours. Until eventually, I said the 8 of diamonds. A huge Jamaican roar came from his lips as he jumped up out of his chair. "Yes, yes, yes," he said, and he hugged me, and we danced. We're still together now. Because of that, ladies and gentlemen, I won the commemorative marker pen from the ESP testing laboratories in Buffalo, New York. Thank you. Thank you. It's only a pen. Tonight, I'd like to teach somebody that skill that took me 3 years to learn, and it's going to be you, sir. What's your name? It's no good looking behind you. You there? What's your name? Brian, wonderful. Brian, you don't have to come up on stage or anything. I've seen the way you're dressed. We'll do it from where you are. All right. Brian, I'll tell you what. We're going to play a little game. I've got an envelope in here. Inside this envelope is a playing card. Now, it's a big playing card because that's why it's a big envelope. All right? It's physics. Google it when you get home. Type in big playing card, big envelope. Okay, one card and one card only in the envelope. I'm going to try and transmit what that playing card is to you. Now, if I tried to do this all in one go, you would struggle. I know you would. So I'm going to make it easy for you. We're going to transmit the playing card to you, piece by piece, bit by bit. First thing we're going to go for, name again? Good memory, well done. Wasn't sure you'd be able to do that, Brian. First thing we're going to go for, Brian, is we're going to go for the colour of the card. Now, there are only two options. The playing card in that envelope has to be either a black card or a red card. Okay? So, Brian, I'm going to write it down here on the pad. And I want you to be perfectly honest. Concentrate. Do you think the card in that envelope is a black card or a red card? What do you think it is, Brian? Red. It is indeed red, ladies and gentlemen. Spooky. Brian, maybe you got lucky. Maybe it was just a 50-50 guess and you struck gold. So listen, we're going to go for the suit now. Now, if it's a red card, there's only two possibles it could be. It's either a heart or a diamond. Say nothing, look at me, concentrate. You've been given a gift, Brian. Share it with the world. Do you think the card in that envelope is a heart or a diamond? What do you think? Diamond. No, you're slowly losing it, Brian. It's a heart, fella. But never mind. Hey, you were only off by one. That's how I started. Brian, maybe I'm confusing you with all this Derren Brown psychology stuff. So listen, I won't write anything else down. We know that the card in here is a red card. We know it's a heart, but we don't know the value of the card. Now, it could be anything from an ace through to a king, but I'm going to give you one more clue, Brian. It's not the ace. I'll tell you why. The ace is the most popular card. If you ask somebody to name a card, 70 or 80% of the time, they would say an ace. So I deliberately didn't put the ace in here. I put a different card, but it could be anything. It could be anything from the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10, the jack, the queen, or the king. Brian, for the first time, name one of those values. What value do you think the card is? 9. Are you sure? 9. Are you certain? Do you want to change your mind? 8. You don't want the 9. You want the 8 now. You could have had the 9, but you want the 8. Ladies and gentlemen, inside this envelope, there is one card, and one card only, and that card happens to be the 9 of hearts. He was off by 1. That's what happened to me. The good thing is I knew you'd be off by 1 this time because I wrote quite clearly on the back of the card that you would be off by 1. Give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I think you're ready for another tune. Yes, I've got it. This is a little song. Now, do you all know what a Smurf is? Okay, I've written a little song about Smurfs. I'd like to sing it for you now. Here we go. They put me in prison for stroking a Smurf. They put me in prison for stroking a Smurf. They put me in prison for stroking a Smurf. Now I won't feel blue anymore. Yes, thank you very much. You know, I've noticed, that, ladies and gentlemen, that we are a little bit obsessed in this country with celebrities. Have you noticed that? We are obsessed with celebrities. I mean, you know, every program now on television has to have something to do with celebrities. Did I do this trick last night? No, I just had a mad feeling. I suddenly had a little rush of blood. I thought I might have done this last night. No, we had a sort of a fascination with celebrities, and we have celebrities, you know, celebrity cookery programs, and I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, and you know, what's the other one? Celebrity Big Brother. Everything has to do with celebrities. In fact, so much so that now we can recognise a celebrity in this country just from their first name. I can't do that with members of my own family, apart from Dad, obviously. Never forget who she is. So I'd like to demonstrate my little theory. I've got some cards here. These cards have got names of celebrities written on them, but just the first name of the celebrity. I'll guarantee if I read out the first name of the celebrity, you'll know the surname. All right, so we'll give it a try. I read out the first name, you shout back the second name. Here we go. We'll try it nice and simple. Easy one to start with. Elvis Presley, wonderful. And Oprah, very good. A little bit louder. Angelina Jolie, good. Elton, yes. Britney Spears, brilliant. Lady, yes, easy, aren't they? Madonna, a little bit harder, that one. All right, what about this? Morgan Freeman, that's right. And Clint Eastwood, yes. Denzel Washington, Bruce Forsyth. These are big Hollywood names. We've just had Morgan Freeman, Clint Eastwood, and Denzel Washington. It's Bruce Willis. Only in Upton would I get Forsyth. Bruce Forsyth. All right, come on, keep up. Tiger, very good. Paris Hilton, yes. John Archer. I've been here all weekend. Look, we've got loads of them. We've got Leonardo DiCaprio, George Clooney, Charlize Theron, Julia Roberts, Jude Law, Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp, Meryl Streep, Lindsay Lohan, Justin Timberlake, and Nicolas Cage, or in your case, Parsons. Now, we're going to try a little experiment with these celebrities, and I need somebody to help me. I can't see very well. I'm going to have a little look. Lady there with the glasses, third row. What's your name? Becca, wonderful. Becca, come on higher. Give Becca a big round of applause. Wonderful. Hi, Becca. Listen, we're going to play a little game. Where are you from, Becca?
New Brighton.
New Brighton. And what do you do? Are you working? Yeah.
I work here.
You work here? Do you really? What do you do here?
Youth worker.
Youth worker. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, Teletubbies. Teletubbies. Wonderful. So Becca. Pardon?
They're a bit old.
A bit older than that. What, sorry, you give me an example then.
No.
No, okay. So Becca, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little game with these celebrities, and I've got a prediction in a moment. But first of all, will you just take those cards, Becca, and just look through them, and just check that they're all different. Make sure I haven't, that's it. Just make sure that there's not like one name over and over again. There's no repeats. They're just all the names I read out are there. That's wonderful. Now, Becca, do you know how to do one of those shuffles like that, where you just take cards from the back and you drop them on the front in little piles? You just sort of drop the edge, drop a few, then drop a few, and then drop a few. That's fine. That's fine. I didn't really want you to do it, but it's too late now. So, Becca, those cards are all different, and you've given me a little mixed up, so I couldn't know the order of the cards now because you've mixed them. I've got my prediction here, Becca. This is a prediction of one of those celebrities that I think you are going to choose in a moment. All right, now, I don't want you to know who it is, but I do need you to confirm that there is just one photograph in here. Now, it might look like two because it's actually folded there. Can you see? But it is just one folded photograph. There's no other photographs in the envelope. Are you happy with that? I don't want you to see who it is. Now, Becca, some people think that perhaps, what I do, let me just check I've got the right person. Yes. Some people think that what happens is after you've made your decision, I secretly change what's inside the envelope. Or maybe I secretly change the whole envelope. So to stop me from doing that, Becca, I'm just going to put it on the floor and ask you to stand on it for me. Wonderful. Okay, Becca, you've given them a little mix-up. What I'd like you to do is to separate those cards into two halves. Turn them face down so I can't see them. Half in your left hand, half in your right. Hold them like this. Now, you can have a look at the edges, Becca, and if you think one's a bit thicker than the other, you can swap some cards across so they're about the same thickness, equal amount on each half. Are you happy? Yeah. Wonderful. Becca, we are going to eliminate some of the cards using this. Are you all right? Good. Don't make a mess of my envelope. Listen. Here's what we're going to do, Becca. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, go. And when I say go, you're going to drop half the cards in the net. Now, it's entirely up to you which half you drop. I don't care. I could make a little bit of an educated guess that your right hand is nearer to the net and you're probably right-handed and you don't want to mess it up, so you'd probably drop the right-hand cards in there. Of course, as soon as I tell you that, you think, oh, he's trying to mess with my head, so I'll drop the left-hand cards. And that might be why I said it. So what I suggest you do is just don't plan it, Becca. Just wait until I say go and surprise yourself. All right? Don't drop both halves in there or you surprise both of us. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. You're a bit keen to get this over with, aren't you, Becca? Yeah. Okay, Becca, you got a few cards there. You can mix them up if you want to, but when you're happy, separate them into two halves again. So you got half in the left hand, half in the right. Yeah, just roughly measure them, make sure they're about the same. If you're not happy, swap some across. You happy? Yep. Okay. Now you've just dropped the right-hand cards. The pressure to drop the left is immense, but you don't have to. You could drop the right-hand cards again if you want to. All right? At the moment, all I'm doing is I'm just messing with your head. A little bit like Brian's hairdresser. Just see what happens. All right. 3, 2, 1, go! Much better. Right-hand cards again, twice in a row. Wonderful. Separate those cards into two halves. You should only have about 3 or 4 cards in each half now. It doesn't matter if they're exactly the same, but roughly the same. It doesn't matter if it's only 2 in one and 3 in the other, whatever it is. Same thing's going to happen. You've dropped the right-hand cards twice. Immense pressure now for you to drop the left-hand cards. But listen, what you could do, if you think I'm messing with your head and making you drop the left-hand cards, you could swap the cards over. You could put the right-hand cards in your left hand, the left-hand cards in your right hand. That way, if I made you drop the right-hand cards, you would have really dropped the left-hand cards. Becca, do you want to do that?
No.
No. Nobody ever does. Ever. Three, 2, 1, go! Right-hand cards again. Wonderful. Let's get rid of this. Becca, we're down to the last few cards. Listen, I'm going to roll my sleeves up. I can't do it very well, but the important thing is there's no extra cards hidden up my sleeves, no extra cards in my hands. I'm going to take them at my fingertips, and you've actually got 3 cards left. So listen, I'll give them a little mix up like this, so it doesn't really matter. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick one for me. You're just going to point to one. Whichever one you point to, Becca, is the one we're going to keep. Okay. The other 2 we're going to get rid of, eliminate. Right. Okay? So you can point to the top one, you can point to the bottom one, or you can point to the middle one. The one on the bottom. This one here. Yep. I'm going to put it on the top. Is that the card you want? Yeah. Wonderful. Do me a favour. Hold your hand out flat. I'm going to place this card on your hand. As soon as I do, I want you to put your other hand on top so I can't swap it.
That's not the card that I picked.
You don't want that one?
No.
No, it's fine. You want that one?
Yeah.
Or do you want that one?
Let's go with that one.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'm going to watch. Make sure I give you that card.
Yeah.
As soon as I put it on your hand, is that the card you picked?
Oh, go on then.
You can swap it for a different one if you want.
No, we'll go with that one.
You want that one? You sure you don't want to swap it for one of these?
No, it's fine.
You can if you like.
No, it's fine.
You might wish you had.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Becca, if you had a swapped, you would have ended up with either Clint Eastwood or Denzel Washington. And you did swap. You probably had one of them earlier. Okay. Becca, for the first time in a nice, loud voice, would you shout out the name of the person you selected after a little bit of awkward changing? Who have you got? Tom?
Clancy.
No. Hollywood.
Help.
Cruise.
Cruise.
Should get Denzel, really. Listen, Beck.
Yeah, any of them.
Blah, 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 blah. Listen, I'm going to let you go back to your seat in a moment. Blah, blah, blah. And When you get back to your seat, I'm going to take a photograph out of this envelope. It's going to be a photograph of Tom Cruise. The audience are going to go wild, clapping, cheering, shouting, but you're going to think that I swapped this picture when you went back to your seat. So listen, as you go back to your seat, blah, 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 keep looking back at this envelope, make sure I don't swap it or change it. Let's give Bex a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Becca! Keep looking, Becca! Keep looking! Becca checked the cards, they were all different. You checked them, Becca. She gave them a mix-up. She threw some away. She mixed them again. She threw some away. She threw some away. She ended up with 3. She picked one. She said, that's not the one I wanted. She changed it to a different one. Are you happy with that one? I'm not sure. All right, then, go on then. That one. She could have kept changing her mind all night if she'd wanted to, but eventually she ended up with Tom Cruise. And yet throughout the whole process, she has been stood on this envelope containing a photograph of one celebrity and one celebrity only. And it is indeed Tom Cruise, ladies and gentlemen. Aged 4 months. There he is. Thank you. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, it's also one of the rare naked pictures of Tom Cruise. You don't see them very often. Now, I must admit, this isn't a great trick to finish before we go into this wonderful little interview. It'd be much more impressive if I could turn this picture around and it was a picture of Tom Cruise. That would be more impressive, wouldn't it? Yeah, I can't. But if I could, it might look a little bit like this. Tom Cruise, ladies and gentlemen, there he is. Thank you. And now I believe I'm about to get interviewed, so buckle up. I'm turning myself on.
Are you turning yourself on? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, John Archer.
Thank you very much.
Have a seat.
Thank you, fella. Look, it's very organised, this church. I'm very impressed. Got cameras and people moving things. It's like being in a proper TV studio. Well, apart from the host, obviously, but you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm kidding, David. Hi, how are you? You all right? Tell me, you've got a lot of questions
I'm
there.
good. Fortunately, many years ago, I did interview you, so I know exactly what I'm in for.
You know what you're up for. That's good.
I know that you'll be light with some things, but other things...
Yeah, other things I'll avoid. Yeah.
We spoke a while ago, and I put some things to you, and you came back with me with some ideas and thoughts. And you told me that when you were growing up, there was lots of fun and laughter in your family. And you have memories of particularly your granddad being a real joker. You also said your mum and dad are retired now, and obviously you love them to bits. Do you think that the comedy that you have actually comes from your family background? And what memories do you have of that time?
Yeah, I think it does come from. I think comedy comes from my family. We laughed an awful lot as a family. We watched a lot of comedy together as a family. You know, we liked watching comedy. Morecambe and Wise. I can remember my dad coming up and sneaking me downstairs to watch Dave Allen, because he was a little bit risky, Dave Allen, and I was only young, but he knew that I just liked comedy. So I can remember him sneaking me down, you know, and waking me up and sort of saying, Dave Allen's on the telly, come on. And I'd go down and watch it. And I'd only understand half the jokes, obviously. But, so yeah, it was a lot of that. And also just having comedians in the family. I mean, my granddad wasn't a professional comedian, but my granddad was one of these people. He often went on holidays with my nana, and they'd go to these holiday camp type things, you know, they're much more sort of common, weren't they, in the 50s and 60s. And he'd always be the one who'd enter the talent competitions, get up and do some jokes, and he'd always win. You know, he was always. And if there was ever a get together, he'd always be holding court. Yeah. You know, and I don't really tell jokes. I say stupid stuff and I pick on people. I don't really tell jokes. My granddad just had an encyclopedic knowledge of jokes. You know.
Where was home originally? Where were you brought up?
Stockton-on-Tees. I still live there
You've
now.
Always been there.
I've always lived in Teesside, around Stockton. Yeah, but I grew up in. When I was young, it was quite a rough council estate I grew up on. When I was 8, my dad sort of escaped and put some money together and bought a house, and you know we sort of moved away from there. But I mean, you know, it was still a great childhood even there. It was still great growing up, you know. Yeah. But those were the days of sort of playing in the streets and, you know, wandering everywhere on your own when you were 6. It doesn't happen now. But
no.
But yeah, it was a great childhood.
You also told me your sort of potted career history included an apprentice draftsman art college, youth worker, car salesman for one day,
Yes.
and a department store DIY man.
Yeah,
What did you enjoy the most? Clearly not the car salesman.
No, I didn't like the car salesman. And thankfully, I mean, I perished the thought if I'd have grown up to be like Martin Mitchell. I mean, how bad? You only want one of them in the world, don't you? And and even one's too much at times. But no, I just didn't. I think really it was just the mood at the time. I went and started work, and then just sat me at a desk with a load of car brochures to look at, and I was just sat there all day reading these car brochures, and I was bored silly really, and I just thought, I don't fancy that. So and also I was sort of looking out the window thinking, I wish I was out there, which is why I ended up joining the police force. Right. Which was, you know, the sort of job that is sort of the job I've done the most. This is the job I've done the most, but that was the only real proper other job that I've had.
How many years have you been doing stand-up comedy like this?
Professionally now for 22 years.
Wow.
But then when I was in the police, I was doing it as a sort of, as a sideline. You know, it was an approved sideline. I had it passed by the chief constable as a business interest, if you like. So, although I wasn't making money as a business, but I was just doing gigs. So there was 10 years then. So in total, I've been performing, for about 32 years.
You're also, and a good friend of yours is Tim Vine.
Yes.
How did you get to know Tim, and how long did?
I met Tim at a Christian holiday camp called Spring Harvest in Skegness. And I was still in the police at the time, but I sort of, I put a special report in and somehow got some time off to go and work at this Christian camp. And I don't know whether I was there a week or 2 weeks. And they used to have an arts team at Spring Harvest that put lots of people together, drama groups and bands and different people, and they'd put different shows on each night. And it changed a little bit over the years, but this was this time when they had a little team. And we were having a team meeting, and everybody was asking, we were all going around saying what we did, and I said, I do comedy. And then Tim arrived late, and he sort of said, is this the arts team? I'm with you. And everybody said, what do you do? And he went, I'm a comedian. And everybody looked at me and they all went, ooh, and they thought there was going to be some rivalry, but actually we just sort of hit it off. Some people you have the same wavelength. Yeah. And we just instantly became friends. He'd just gone full-time then. He'd just left his job. He'd been full-time about a year, hadn't done any television or anything. And I stayed in the police for another 2 years after that. It was 1994 I met him. I left in 96. And we just hit it off. And
you've been doing the comedy routine for a long time. Has it always gone well? Was there any barren periods, or was it just right from the word go? Was it tough?
No, it's always gone well most of the time. But you have periods where you have bad gigs. You always have bad gigs. The thing is, what keeps you going is the fact that you've got to have more good gigs than bad gigs. It's like if I was a car salesman and I didn't sell cars most of the time, and now and again I did. Yeah. You'd think, I'm going to give up. But if now and again you have a bad sale or whatever, then you think, that's not too bad. And it's the same with comedy magic. Every now and again you get a bad gig, and it's not your fault. It's just, it just doesn't work out. So I've had a few horrendous ones through the time. Yeah. And sometimes it's my fault. Sometimes I just set off on the wrong foot and I realise I've done it wrong. That happens less now. Yeah. It's more if it goes wrong, it's normally the environment of the room or the audience or something.
Obviously, you've toured all over the place. Christian comedians, are they few and far between that you know?
No, not really. I mean, there's quite a few. The thing is, it's how you differentiate between Christian comedians or comedians who are Christians. Yeah. I mean, I consider myself a comedian who is a Christian because I do secular gigs as well. Yes. And I do pretty much the same act. I don't change anything. When I do a corporate event or a private party for somebody who's it's not a Christian thing. And there are a lot of comedians who are Christians, like Miranda and Milton Jones, who's on Mock the Week a lot, Tim Vine, obviously, Joe Enright, who's done quite a bit of TV, and there's quite a lot of you, Paul Carenza, he does the Thought for a Day sometimes on Radio 2. Yeah. There are a lot of comedians who are Christians.
It's interesting that the format for comedians has changed totally. Years ago, you remember, I remember, it was stand-up comics who told jokes. Yeah. Now it's more about life, isn't it?
It is more about life, and that's stylistic. You do get some who will tell jokes, but obviously, styles change. Observation is much, that's the thing. I mean, Tim tells jokes, but they're very, very quick one-liner jokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would think the vast majority of people coming on the circuit now doing comedy are doing observational stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure why that is. I mean, there is the other thing now, of course, that you know, in the 70s we joked about lots of things that now we consider wrong, rightly, I think, we consider wrong to joke about. But then we sort of, you know,
Anything went.
yeah,
didn't it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of racism in comedy. There was a lot of sexism in comedy, and that's all gone. And that's a good thing that it's gone. But it means that people have to look at other ways of still getting it. And you're still going to be, you're always going to be skirting the edge. When you do comedy, you're always going to be a fine line, you know, because you always want to be pushing the audience a little bit. And you can upset people for mentioning anything.
Yeah.
You can upset people for mentioning corned beef, and somebody, you know, had a son who died of corned beef poisoning, and you know, and that can happen. I've had people who've got upset because I've mentioned silly things, you know.
Yeah. Last night in the second part, most people here, when you ask them to put their hand up, been here last night. You mentioned in the second half about how you became a Christian yourself through meeting your wife to be and so on. In a very
She wasn't my wife, actually. I married somebody else. But
You did?
It was a girlfriend who took me to church.
A girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, I never married her. I married one of her friends.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But when I was listening to what you said last night, I thought, yeah, you know, that's great. Was there an actual point? Because you said you went to the church and most of the time you felt it was utterly boring, but once you actually listened and then another time you listened again. Was there an actual point when you said, yeah?
There was a point, but that wasn't at church. I mean, I think the process for me, and I think the process for a lot of people when they come to faith or they become to have a relationship with God, now and again you get people who get these, you know, moments where, you know, you hear people who've heard voices or they've seen something and it's been a defining moment. For me, it was a lot of asking questions. It was a lot of questions and then, you know, pondering it as I went to bed and pondering it as I was driving my car somewhere. But there was a definite point where I prayed a prayer of commitment and thought, this is something I definitely want to do. And that was in Whitby with my friend who was a Christian, and he then basically just clearly went through what the gospel message was for me. And having gone through this period of asking questions and thinking about things, I thought not everything made sense, but enough of a percentage made sense. A big enough portion of it made sense that I thought, I want to do this. You know, it seems right.
You were also saying to me that when you look through your life and what have you, that you've been very blessed, that you haven't had any major family problems. Your mum and dad are still alive and so on. In the number of years that you have been a Christian, I would have to say there's been times when I've kind of wobbled in that there's been something happened and it's questioned one or two things. Have you ever had that time or not?
Not major wobbles, minor wobbles, little wobbles, wibble wobbles. But I think I've just had. I have doubts, and I still have doubts, but I think they're healthy. I think there's nothing wrong with, you know, questioning yourself rather than just, you know, because I find when I have doubts and I question it, it just at the end of the day I end up being more strengthened by it anyway. Wow. And I've had issues in my life. Obviously, as soon as I left my job as a policeman and went full time, it was suddenly relying, you know, it was trusting God would provide work for me. When I originally went full time, the intention was that it would all just be Christian work. That's what I thought I was going to be doing, just church stuff and, you know, giving my testimony and entertaining people and using that as a way to get to people. As it happened, I started getting secular work as well, and that I realised that actually that made sense because, you know, the secular work pays more normally than the church work does for obvious reasons. But it still meant that I had to, not in the same way that a missionary, I'm not saying I'm some superhero, but I still had to live by faith and think, well, I hope I get some work next month. And, you know, and you'd get periods where, you know, I mean, now I don't worry about it. Now I look at my diary, I haven't got much work in for January, February next year, but I know it'll be all right. I just 100% know that the work will come in, you know, November, December for those months. And, you know, so
so those things strengthen my faith as well. And I've had lots of occasions where things have happened, and I've thought, how am I going to get through this? And it's been easy. You know, your tax bill comes in, you think, well, I haven't saved that much up. I wish I'd saved a bit more, you know. And sometimes it's, you know, amazing things happen, and sometimes just normal things, like my dad says, well, I'll lend you some money, son. I go, thanks, Dad.
About, I must be 3 or 4 years ago now, you did a nationwide tour with Rob Parsons.
Yes.
And I think one of the gigs was at the church, the Whittle Christian Centre in Birkenhead. We went to see you there. And at the time I thought, a kind of strange combination. Rob Parsons, Care for the Family, yeah, I know all about that. And how does that fit in with what you do? But actually, it married beautifully. I think you did the first half and he did the second and what have you. Tell me about Rob Parsons, because I know people know his name, but you have a special place with
Rob
him, don't you?
is one of the loveliest men in the world.
Really?
Rob. Yeah. He's almost as nice as Mark Mitchell. No, Rob runs a charity called Care for the Family. I first came into contact with Rob, it must be around about 30 years ago, and he just came and did a thing out of church. Care for the Family is like a really lovely charity that doesn't just work for and with Christians, it works basically with families. And they came and did a work, not a workshop, it was like a seminar thing at our church. And there was one thing he shared, he was talking about how bringing up families and how it's difficult, and he shared this thing about family nights. And he said, if you're away from home a lot and, you know, things are hard, every now and again have a family night. And he said, this is what we do. And he said, a family night was you drag all the mattresses downstairs, you all put them all in the living room, you get your kids in, you get a load of DVDs, which is the way you used to watch films in the old days. And you'd put the DVDs on, you'd buy sweets and pop, and you'd take the phone off the hook, and you'd all fall asleep together on the, in the living room that night. And so I started doing that because I when I eventually went full time, I started doing those. I'd come home and I'd been away for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd say, right, we're having a family night, and the kids got to know these family nights. So when I got home, they'd love it. Oh, we're having a family night, and it really kept me and the kids really close together. And even now, and they're 31, 30, and 27. Even now, if we're all together at one time, they'll say, let's have a family night, and we don't drag the mattresses down anymore. But we have a curry, and we watch a film, and we have we drink wine instead of pop, and we all sit together and just, and enjoy ourselves. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that'll pass on to them. But that was all because of Rob Parsons. He's just got, he's a bit like Jesus. No, he's just really, he just loves everybody. He's just,
lovely guy.
You feel really, really sinful when you spend some time with him, because he's so nice and so generous and caring. It's great, and it's a great charity. If you've never heard of it and you just want encouraging with your family life, then get in touch. They're great.
Now, John, you're married to Julie. You have 3 children.
Yes.
Tell me a little about Julie and your 3 children, what age they are and what they're doing at the moment.
I don't know what my age my wife is. My wife is, she's actually in America. I've been texting her, she's just arrived, she's gone to see her sister. Wow. But my wife jumps from job to job because she likes challenges, and then as soon as she's solved the problems, she wants the next challenge. So she has been, when I met her, she was a midwife. She's been a driving instructor, trained how to be a driving instructor, and ran her own driving instructor for a few years. She's been a college lecturer teaching costume for film, TV and theatre. She got a degree, got a first-class honours degree when she was in her 40s in costume design. She's been a doctor's administrator. She's been a church administrator, which is what she does now. And she runs her own dried flower company for weddings and stuff that she runs out of the shed in our garden. I can't call it a shed when she's around. It has to be called the workshop. But it's a shed full of dried flowers. So yeah, she's sort of, she's sort of like a female version of Mark. She's always got to have projects and things and talking and doing lots of things, and she's great, just with people and
what about your 3 children? Where are they?
3 children. I mentioned last night I've got Amy, Sam and Tom. Amy's the oldest one. She's 31. She is married to a policeman in Scarborough, and she's marketing manager for Jamie Oliver. So she sort of works from Scarborough, but then every other week she goes down to London and works from the Jamie Oliver office. I think she's the reason why Jamie Oliver's closing all of his restaurants. I think. Wasn't happening until she started working. But he made a load of redundancies and kept her on, so he must like her. And she's got a little son called Archie. She's called Rushworth, her surname, so she liked Archer. So when she had her first son, she called him Archie. So he's Archie Rushworth, which is a great little Yorkshire name, isn't it? Then I've got Sam, who's the middle one. He's 30, just turned 30. And he's a worship leader at a church down in Littlehampton called Arran Community Church. So he leads worship there, and he also runs a worship group called King's Village, who sort of do various worship events and things. And he's married to a girl called Kat, who is a midwife, and they've got a little boy as well. They were born 12 days apart. I had 2 grandsons born 12 days apart by my son and my daughter. And he's called Forrest Archer. Forrest Ezra Justice Archer. That's a good name, isn't it? Hey, that's the name of somebody who can walk down the street like a cowboy. Forrest Ezra Justice Archer. So they're both, he's about 20 months old as well. And then my youngest one, Tom, he's 27. He still lives with us. He works as a chef in a vegetarian restaurant nearby, although he's not a vegetarian. In fact, the people who run the restaurant are vegetarians. It's odd. They all take all the stew that they made home and add meat to it when they get back. But he works there as a chef. But they're really good. They sort of have, it's a really sort of hippie-ish type restaurant. And they've got a little bit at the back where they have performance. And he's a musician. So they just let him, whenever he has a gig, they just give him time off to go and do his gigs. And he's performing a lot. He's sort of doing quite well. He's been played a bit on Radio 2 and just got a publishing contract. I'm excited for him, actually. There's lots of stuff going on for him. So, yeah, but all 3 of them doing really well. I don't know. We'll skip a generation.
I notice these days that it's hard to get young people to come to church because if they're married and they've got a family, they've got mortgages, they've got other commitments, and weekend is the time that they spend together. And yet somebody once said to me that the best thing you can ever give your children is your time. Have you been able to do that? And what advice would you give to people who find it difficult? Because you've brought up 3 children, and they all have their needs, don't they? And you just said, you know, they've turned out well. You're happy for them.
Yeah.
But it's not all, I mean, you're all over the place.
Yeah.
It couldn't have
to
been
be honest,
easy.
I think in the honest truth of it is, I think my kids have missed out a little bit on me. The truth is. But I don't think any of them regret it because they certainly got less time from me than they would have got if I'd have stayed at home and been a policeman. But I think the time that they did get with me was much better quality time. I think whenever I was home during the day and in the evening, and we did stuff together. So, and I think they loved having a dad who was a comedy magician. I can remember when they were at school, and I'd be sat sort of just in the living room, I'd be watching telly or just reading a book or something, and my kids would come in, Tom would come in, and then 4 of his friends would come in, and they'd all just stand there like that, looking at me. Like that. And then he'd turn and go, come on. And they'd all go out, and they all just wanted to come in and see this comedy magician. You know, it was like, yeah, that's John Archer. My dad, you know, he's been on telly, and they'd all come in. So I think they loved the fact that who I was and what I did. And, you know, for kids to have a dad who's a comedy magician, it's, you know, it's exciting. So I think they missed out in some ways, but I think they gained in other ways. And they've met amazing people, and they've got to do things they wouldn't have got to do. And I think, you know, they are creative because they've seen me make a living being creative and realise that it can be done. Yeah. Whereas a lot of times, I think if you're brought up in I don't want to use the word ordinary family because there isn't an ordinary family, but if you're brought up in a family where, you know, you've got 2 parents who just go to work and come back and you know, live a relatively normal life, even though that doesn't exist, to suddenly think, well, I'm going to do this, you know, creative thing, or I'm going to go and be a singer or whatever, sounds scary and impossible, but they've seen me do it, and they've also seen my wife just constantly reinvent herself and do new things. So I think it's been good for them. I think it's worked, yeah.
Listening to you last night, performing last night, and a few things you did this morning and again this evening, some people would say that Christians shouldn't do magic tricks because it involves deceit.
Yes.
How would you respond to that? And it's a serious question.
It is.
I
It is
don't
a
have an
serious
issue
question.
myself whatsoever, but I'd just like you to say what you think.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's various things going on. First of all, if you say that we shouldn't have any deception in our lives, then it means that ladies wearing makeup is a deception. We all know that some of these ladies don't look that good in real life. Okay? Oh, you just give her a kiss. He said, yes, you do. You do, darling, honestly. No, but, we wear stripes to make us look thin. And if we go to the movies, we watch an actor pretending to be somebody they are not. If we go to the theatre. So deception isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes deception is what I would call an honest deception. It's a deception where the audience realise that you're fooling them for a reason, either as an actor or you're dressed to look a certain way or whatever. So I don't think deception is a bad thing. What I consider what I do to be an honest deception. I get up and I pretend to do stuff that's impossible, but the audience know that I'm tricking them. They know that I'm cheating them. And the Bible doesn't condemn conjuring. It condemns magic. And if you look at the word magic, it has various meanings. It can mean a conjurer, which is what I do. It can mean somebody who is involved in evil practices. And it's the evil practices that the Bible condemns. It doesn't condemn conjuring. In fact, if you look at David in the court of Nebuchadnezzar, he was, at a time when he was walking very close with God, he was given the role of chief magicians in the courts. And that was, now, he would refuse to eat any food that they would give them, and he would refuse to do lots of things, but he didn't refuse to be chief of all magicians, because a magician in those times was a wise man. It was a magi. When Jesus was born, he was visited by magicians, effectively, wise men. And of course, it was knowledge of things that other people didn't know, which is where we get this term magician. I have knowledge of trickery and things that I can do, all perfectly natural. I'm not reading minds or doing anything. But I have knowledge of things that you don't have knowledge of. And magi of the time, they would have studied the stars, astronomy, and, that had known about the planets, and, which is, why they visited, obviously, seeing the star. So it doesn't condemn what I do. It condemns people using that knowledge for evil purposes. Yeah. And sometimes you can get mediums. I think a lot of the fake mediums that you see, these mediums will claim to contact the dead and claim to tell you your future. Sometimes they are using magical techniques to do that. Techniques that I would use in a perfectly natural, normal way. They will use to get information and to trick you. Then it becomes evil, I think. And a lot of the stuff that the mind readers, the fake mediums and the fortune tellers, a lot of the techniques that they use, it's perfectly normal, and I could use them the same way for entertainment purposes. So it's how you use that knowledge and that stuff that is evil, not the thing itself.
When you were talking last night in the second part about your own personal testimony, what struck me was it was straightforward. It was easy to listen to. It wasn't blinding people with verses all over the place. It was straightforward. Here, we just started on an Alpha course.
Right.
And I mentioned the Alpha course to you. Why do you think, the people here tonight who maybe aren't Christians might be thinking about it, what's the advantage of joining an Alpha course, do you think?
I think the Alpha course, it's funny, isn't it, how churches have reached people and pointed people towards God through history, and sometimes they've done it with the big Billy Graham appeals where they'll preach and the message. I think in modern times people like to ponder things a bit more. I think we have the internet on our phones and everything. We like to research on things, and the good thing about the Alpha course is you can take your time and you can ask questions, and it's in an environment that's actually it's not in a big football ground with 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 people. You can go and you have a good meal, you can make some friends. And the good thing about the Alpha course as well is you can go on an Alpha course, have a great time, and even if at the end of it you don't make a commitment to follow God, and you've still made some great friends. So it's a win-win situation doing an Alpha course. It's a great social time. You have some food, you meet some people, but also you get chance to ponder on those issues, like I did, over a period of time, to ask those questions and think about it, and then the next week ask some more questions and come to an informed decision. So I think it's probably one of the best ways now to discover what Jesus is all about, is through an Alpha course.
By your own admission, you've been fairly fortunate and blessed in your life. But for some people, it doesn't always work out like that. And you said to me, having faith gets you through the tough times, but the truth is, there will always be grief and that sense of loss. Do you ever feel or hope that your comedy can lift people out of a difficult time?
Yeah, I very much feel, I'll get emotional if I'm not careful, so I'll take a breath. I know that God has told me that he wants people to laugh, and I find that incredible. That this all-powerful God can just be concerned with the fact that he wants us to laugh. On 2 occasions, I've had people who didn't know anything about me at events have come up to me and said, I don't know who you are, I don't know, but God's just told me he wants you to make people laugh. Now, maybe it's because they look at my face and think that's all he can do. I don't know. But he does. And I've had occasions where, I had it just 2 days ago. I was doing an Alpha launch at a church in Derby, and a woman came up to me after the show. She said, I was at the big church day out 2 years ago when you and Tim Vine were there. She said, my family were at a really low time. My 15-year-old daughter had got anorexia. She was in serious depression. She said, and that night we came to see you. She said, and we all laughed as a family. And she said that was the turning point where everything turned. And her daughter was now fine and well. Now, I'm not saying we did that, but it was a moment. And sometimes, when there's all this horribleness going on in life and issues and, things you're worrying about, and paying bills and everything else. But if you can just sometimes just sit down and laugh, it changes your life. I mean, they've done experiments that they found that laughter, produces endorphins that are healing. It's a powerful thing. And just to know that, God wants so much for you, but actually, he just wants you to be happy. He wants you to laugh, not to worry so much. It's a powerful, powerful thing, which is why I don't think about it too much.
We've had a wonderful weekend with you. I mean, last night was tremendous. This morning was good. And again this evening. Just one final question. In our audience tonight, we will have, as I said before, Christians and non-Christians alike. And all of us would agree, yes, the world is a tough and dangerous place these days. And as you mentioned last night, getting worse. If I asked you for just one prayer that you would like to see answered, what would it be and why?
I think it's for, if there's people here who, don't have a relationship with God, and there's things like Alpha course going on here. Maybe you've come further away. There'll be one near you if it's not here. Just investigate. Start asking the questions. My big thing would be, I don't understand why people would not do that. I don't understand why you would not investigate the most important question of life, which is, why are we here? What's it all about? And if there is this God that loves us so much that he just wants us to be laughing, be happy and care for us and love us, why you wouldn't want to at least try and contact and get in touch with that guy. So I would say I'd encourage people to get involved and find out.
Okay.
You've got nothing at all to lose and everything to gain. If I'm a liar and I'm deluded and if I'm wrong, what have you lost? You've sat down with some strangers and had a meal and talked about some odd little subjects. It's still worth doing.
It's been a special weekend for us, and it's been part of our Celebration 150. We've had other events. This has been different, but it's been special in its own way. Thank you for last night. Thank you for this morning, and thank you for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, John Archer.
Thank you.
it's been a delight, it really has. So thank you for last night. Thank you for this morning. John came and joined us for Sunday worship at 11 o'clock here. Any of you who are coming to St Mary's, pick up a notice sheet if you can. Services at the normal times next Sunday. You've shared yourself with us, which has been marvellous. When Stuart Townend came, St Stuart of Townend, he came, and I said to him, thank you for reminding us that we are children of God as well as servants of God, and you've done that. So thank you for making us laugh and sharing joy with us. And I'm going to pray a prayer, and I'm going to pray. It's really for people who are travelling. You'll all go from here. Well, I hope you do, because otherwise you're going to be sleeping in the church. But we do have a prayer meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock, so you're very welcome to join us then. John's going to travel. He'll catch up with Julie, and he'll catch up with Amy and Sam and Tom and Archie and Forrest, Ezra, Justice. And we're going to pray for him as we pray these words of blessing, but also pray for ourselves that we go from here in peace. And what we sometimes say at communion here is go to your homes and tell of what the Lord Jesus has done for you. So I pray that for you. Let me pray these words of blessing. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you, wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness and protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. You are always welcome here. Go in peace and with God's blessing. Amen.